a gigantic ship ran aground in the Suez Canal. And if you go and look, there are an insane number of boats stuck on either side, and people don't realize how big a deal this is, because shipment through that is so important that if it was easy to get things out of there, they would have done so a longer time ago. And to understand why this is a big deal, you need to go back to the history of tea and why the British love tea. Because when tea was really in demand, there was a race for clipper ships to get from India to England and China to England and bring all this tea in. And the first ship that arrived could make a huge amount of money. In fact, there were clipper races where the prize was the equivalent of millions of pounds if you got there first. Now, by the time they'd done these races for a couple of years, they were purely symbolic, because they had made the trip in an amazing amount of time. But even with all the optimizations, the two lead ships arrived like 8 to 10 hours apart, which means there was no longer a profit advantage because now you had too much supply in London. So it was only symbolic. But the real reason was that steam power and the Suez Canal had completely changed the nature of shipping. Sailboats can't go through a canal, but steamships can. And the Suez Canal, once it was created, meant you didn't have to go all the way around Africa to get to England, which was staggering. It shaved half the time off the trip. Now, the Suez Canal was a massive undertaking, and it's one of the reasons for geopolitics in the Middle East, because it goes through an incredibly contentious part of the world. The only other time that's happened is the Panama Canal, which means you don't have to circumvent South America. And the Panama Canal was enough of a contentious issue that not only did America run Noriega out, but they also basically turned the area around the Panama Canal into an American protectorate. It's so contentious that China is currently building a competing canal through Central America. And the amount of shipping that goes through those two things is staggering. We've actually standardized on the size of a shipping container. The biggest boat in the world is called a Panamax boat, because it's literally the width of the Panama Canal with like a foot on either side. And these things go through canals, locks that lift them up and down, but there has to be a natural lake or river in between, because you're not going to dig all the way through Central America. So what they did is they actually flooded a whole series of valleys and plugged them at either end with locks to move things in and out of the Panama Canal. And when you look at the boats, there's just this massive queue of ships. And if you look at shipping data today, there are hundreds and hundreds of the world's biggest ships stuck with containers destined for the Western world from China. And if you're going to Europe, it's going through Suez. If you're going to America, it's going through Panama, which means like a massive glut of shipping in Oakland and other ports, but ports around Houston and Louisiana and even up the East Coast are completely empty if the Panama Canal gets blocked. Now, the fact that they haven't been able to get rid of the Suez Canal is partly because the depth of the Suez Canal is not even. It's actually shaped like a V, and that means that a boat the size of one of the big ships that goes through Suez, like the one that's stuck now, has very little clearance below it. At most a couple of meters, even if it stays in the middle. And if you look at the edges, for a boat to be at the angle that it's in now, it's not just slightly aground, it's like dug in, and they're literally widening the Suez Canal to get it out of there. Meanwhile, it's a cork that is stopping a huge amount of international trade. And I don't think we've realized what's going to happen, but we're going to see product shortages in the next week that are, whether that's your Amazon shipment didn't get there, the world's going to suddenly wake up and realize that we have interrupted international trade, and be aware of that. That's it. So half of what I just said, I need to go find the actual number, the actual slide, but I did the whole thing